Hello, good night. How are you? How is everything going? Thank you so much for get patience with all the topic of yesterday. Can you listen? Yes, I had a meeting that I cannot postpone, and we are a huge group, and I should be there, and I can't do nothing for reorganize it. So thank you. I will ask you how we will get that speaking call. I am thinking on Saturday or Monday at night, maybe on Monday. But I want to ask you, and I will organize everything for the schedules that will better for the majority. But also we can divide it. Maybe some people has more time on weekends or maybe other ones on Monday. So we will reorganize it. We will wait until more people come. I hope you read the article. I try to tell you like as soon as possible. Maybe you can do some plans at night or rest or do whatever. But it was impossible and was so stressful meeting. So I am quite tired. If you can see my face, it's like when you don't sleep. Can you see? They're huge. Yes, I had a horrible meeting. But okay, we are here for work. So today we will discuss about environmental law. That is like an amazing topic for me. We will start to explain all the basics and all the general, and I want to give you some ideas. By the end, I will tell you what we will do for tomorrow night for our speaking call, because we will start to to redact. And yes, basically is that we will start now, and hopefully more people connect in a couple of minutes. And yeah, that's it. Good night, good night, good night. So, okay. Can you see my screen right now? Yes, no, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing that we need to understand is what is environmental law? What is involved in this area that we maybe didn't put a lot of attention in our law schools, that I guess that in general terms, when we discuss this topic, you didn't tell me like, oh no, I maybe didn't see some agrarian law or agricultural law. You told me, oh, I saw environmental law. That this one is the basic. I saw it as elective on my law school, but with all the constitutional and human rights, I have been taking more information about it. So all this lesson I want to tell you that is based in one jail course of environmental law. And all this course, you can find it online with a lot of issues that can help to all your preparation and for all the things that you can take and understand in this area, because it's huge. I just take the most interesting one, sorry. And I hope that I can turn on this interest for this special area, okay? So the first thing is the definition. Means like any on all federal, states, local, and foreign statutes, law, regulations, ordinances, rules, judgments, order, decrees, permits, concessions, grants, franquicias. Esto es algo muy importante, las franquicias, que es un tema que lo habíamos hablado, creo que en derecho comercial, pero lo hablamos, pero nunca lo definimos como un término súper importante, ¿verdad? Entonces, quiero que hoy, sobre todo en la clase que tenemos hoy, comprendamos como, por ejemplo, este tema de las franchises can be really connected with all economical, political, and security of all our nations. And I will explain you why later, okay? All the licenses, agreements of governmental restrictions relating to pollution and the protection of environment, or the release of any materials into the environment, including those related to all the substances or wasted emissions and all the carbon emissions, for example. And for understand this is really important to see ourselves in the world, right? Everything that we see around us, that we can touch, that we can feel, that we can create, or that we can waste, is part of environmental law. Our lives is environmental law, everything. So here it's really incredible how we never pay the attention that this topic needs. All the waste that we get in every system, can be like water, can be trash, can be all the clothes, all the food wasted, all the reduced, all the todos los residuos, all the waste that we create is part of environmental law. So what I want to create today basically is that you can start to realize how it's important, but I don't want that you start to be like an environmentalist. I don't want that you change your political or your economical opinion. I don't want to change your position against to the system or how this capitalism is affect us. No, my idea is to help or to give you some skills or some strategies or some questions that you can put in your mind, and by the end of this part of this special section that I'm really excited for teach, and is like give you a space that you ask yourself how will be your solution if you should take a position that lets you change something in your local or in your community or in your country and then in the world, right? But not talking about all the hopes that we can get for become an environmental lawyer, but also, yes, how you can do it from the way that are you doing all your career. If maybe are you working with administrative law, with criminal law, with civil law, with some corporative world, how these points of view will help you with a whole perspective about the influence of every decision that we take, right? So how all the things from the point of view that we want to see affect us as a society, right? This is my plan. So here we have like four basic elements that we can find hundreds, but I decided to choose these four. The first one that I want is to get the opportunity to analyze all the environment, but like for all the sections that we can get on it. And I will explain you why. And also from which point of view we want to analyze it. Yes. Then we will take the example of US in some studies and researches that they are doing around all this topic, how all the local laws or all the local decisions can affect all the nation, and how in, like, for example, in our community, we deal with some wastes or some like manages from the policy, but also from the government, and how they take decisions without follow some rules and some international rules, that by the end all the emissions and all the consequences of that decisions is not just affecting our community, it's affecting maybe the other part of the world, right? We know that all these environmental issues are really complex. It's not just because the human is so complex, it's just because as society we are extremely complex. We are interrelated, but we depend one of each other, right? So if I change or if I modify a little bit about a behavior, I will affect a lot of people, and I need to create a study and a study of impact, right? This happens if I am working for a company, if I am working with the government, if I am working as a consultant. Depending of the area that I'm working, I always will to create an analysis or about risk. But we never use it and we never do it from the environmental law because it's not so common that we get cases so important like this. It's not so common that you get in your office some huge pharmaceutical company that want to create a license for this. So how it's not so common like in our legal lives, but basically it's around us all the time. We didn't get all the skills for analyze and make the interpretations of the laws. And when we can make an analysis and we start to compare some policies around the world and start to analyze how all these environmental issues works in Colombia, and I start to analyze how it works in US, we start to see a range so huge and so opposite, even when we are the base of that economy. And when I'm talking about we, of course, is including your countries also, all our countries. How we cannot, for now, hello, how we cannot like change so directly all the nation responsibility. We can analyze it from the point of view or local or of or neighborhood. We can start to understand how these legal frameworks are working, right? When we are talking about how I can take decisions in my community, I will start going step by step from the lowest to the highest. And this is something that maybe we never are connected with. In Colombia, in my city, that is a huge city because it's the capital, we always had troubles with the wastes because when they start to analyze and check the health of the people that lives around that, they start to see and check that they are having a lot of clinical issues because of that. But how are you not involved in these consequences? You maybe do some kind of protest. Oh yeah, oh yes, the government needs to reorganize that situation, and maybe you can talk about some academical point of view. But how you never leave it in your own body, and how it's not your family, and how we're really far away from this part of the society that are really suffering the bad consequences about environment. We never put in their shoes, right? And we never analyze it so objective or from an objective way how you will fix it. Something that you didn't broke, but something that is not working for years and centuries, right? We never analyzed this. We always repeat in our law schools that happens. Oh yeah, this is the treaties that are working on it. This is all that protects your human rights. And of course, that is the same trouble that we are having. Imperfect, in perfect land, in our in the country of our dreams, everything is working, and all that we have in papers is working, and we are having all the rights and all the guarantees for continue making our yes, our lifestyle. But that is not true, right? When we talk about nations, we need to start that we have different obligations because just via geographical stuff, we are having different treaties, right? But also we produce different things. I cannot do the framework for Colombia thinking in the way that they produce electronics in Asia because our economy sector is really opposite. And the waste that we create is really different in Colombia that in some part of Russia, right? And of course that we can manage it different. If I take all these biological wastes wastes, and I like do a really hard study that how I can take advantage of all these, I can create a different way of economy. But do these kind of studies are expensive and the people are not interested in. Um, how we produce so different, all these legislations are different. Well, which one? Can't remember. It was maybe 40 years or 50 years that they are analyzing how constantly US start to going out of all the international treaties. And the top of this situation was Trump. And now the president of the United States, I remember like the first day of no, the first promising campaign, but also the first day when he becomes a president, was to trying to start to put in again to US in these international treaties that protects the like all the rights of nature, but also was so connected with emissions. But here is so controversial because we didn't have a balance. Even if Colombia and all South America, Brazil, even if we create really strong policies in this area, if in the other part of the world this didn't working, we are doing nothing. Of course that we can help to reduce all the emissions. Of course that we can get a lot of plants and we can start to try to put in again all the turtles in the oceans. We can do a lot of efforts. But if we are not connected and we are doing the same, we are doing nothing, right? And this depends of political issues, criminal issues. So when we discuss these kind of things, it's not just the hard part to get a negotiation, like in an international arena, it's just get results, because that is the trouble again. As we talk about in our constitutions, that the reality is completely against of the constitution. In the international sector, it's the same thing. We can do a lot of agreements, but also some economical interests will affect the all the decisions that you take is inside of the country, and they will find a way to do it or to make it blurry for all the international standards, right? When we talk about environmental law, we need to talk about environmental justice. That this is a huge topic where a lot of people that are really studying this area, they are creating a lot of articles and a lot of researches to explain how this environmental justice can create other standards for the communities, and especially for indigenous communities, right? We start to see how the Inter-American Court of Human Rights and the UE start to analyze how to protect the nature, but also to give them to the rivers, to the lands, to the mountains, rights, and from there make that the people respect them. But a lot of people and lawyers and professionals, they start to go against this kind of decisions, right? And that is how we start to see the way that they go against this kind of decisions, regulations, and all the licenses that they get. Because one time that one administrative part of the government take a decision, you cannot just go against as an environmentalist, even if you are sustaining with a lot of research that all the bad consequences about this. If the government do it already, you as a citizen, even when you are like seeing the future and you see how this will finish, you cannot put it down, right? Until you get the results that you try to prevent. But when you get the results, then you can say, oh, yes, I told you to the government, and you ask for some money to solve the trouble. But this is something that was political and that was also created in that way. And even when you are in an indigenous communities or when you are representing this kind of interest, it's really hard that you can demonstrate them how this will affect your community, because the whole system is designed to be and skip some parts of some treaties or some agreements against the people that maybe didn't know how to do it or didn't have the language, the knowledge, the skills, or just the opportunity to defend the rights, right? That happens a lot in Brazil, in the north of Brazil. They didn't know how to balance this producing, like with soy, with oil, with a lot of plantations, with the native territories and the ancestral territories, right? So at this point, as I told you, we have different points of view. And we need to analyze which one is the legitimate role from the government, and depending especially which political group now can take decisions. If you are talking like in a democratic systems, you didn't need to take this in account, because suppose that your system is not guided by elections or by who has the power now. And that sounds good on paper again. But when you saw the realities like Bolivia or Colombia, whatever, you understand that when you make a vote, you are basically supporting something really dark or some of light. And why? I will tell you my example. In Colombia, our president is basically managed by an ex-president, right? And this is a huge and powerful political group that they have a lot of invests in some materials and some mines and extractions all around the country. When they start to put strategically all the ministers, they are making that the system works for them. So when you are against that part of all the map of power, they just kill you. That's it. This is the simple way to solve it. And that is happening. So when I was discussing with the girls from Costa Rica that, yeah, maybe they do some corruption and you can get like results, and the states is really difficult that take decisions against one of these huge companies. But unless they respect your life. But if you start to defend not just the human rights and your life and all the bad consequences of this management, when you are discussing and asking for protection in your land, they just kill you, and they find a way to do it without any control. So when we talk about all the points of view of the government, I want to say that depends, of course, that the people that get the power, because you can do a lot of things if you are working with the right people, or they can just close all the doors for all the proposals that you get, even when you are trying to improve in for some communities or for the country. And that is when we start to work how the NGOs works and how you can get some money from some projects in your country asking for international help. Because you need to explain them how, that is the basis for get international money. You need to explain them how your country or your government, they cannot solve these troubles. They cannot find a way to correct some issues and how you need them. And then you can start to analyze, but it's just this of all the government of all the world, but will be better if that don't do nothing. So it's so interesting how these is always interrelated, and how we never discuss and we never make connections, on how we never do some studies between international organizations, but in law. We can see this kind of studies by biological issues or some engineering troubles or some scientists, but we can analyze it. We can get like our point of view or our interpretation about how the law needs to be applied in some country or in some territory. But and we can put it like from an academic forum. Wow, an amazing study, and we can support it with some um, studies like so specific and so technical and so I don't know, depending of the topic. I will let you some examples later. But even when you get all that information, if you didn't know how to do it and how to put it in consideration from a body that can get results, that is not necessarily a Congress, but you need it in all these connections, because you can go to the Congress talking about our countries necessarily. We can go to the Congress, then we can get some law, and then we need to apply it. But in all this process, we can take 10 years, and 15, 20. When we talk about all this area of law, we get the same principles of tort law, civil law, and criminal law. They are here in all the environmental issues. All the obligation that you can get in an international treaty, all the bad consequences, all the behaviors that can be punishment by the law with criminal issues in some huge environmental cases. This is criminal law, but all the good faith, all the respect of the rights of the other will be perfectly adaptable in this case and in this area of law. Okay? Here you can say, here you can see, or I can say, some problems or some issues that is just a couple. But if I take this, I will find a trouble from this. And it's all the plastic and all the waste. Same with the paper. I will do the same way with trees and all these things that is happening worldwide. If I take my phone, I will talk about electronics and about how all these consequences will affect even when they are producing it in the other part of the world. How in the point that I want to change my phone because I want some best camera, and I am thinking that I really wish an iPhone or something. When I change my phone, I didn't get the correct way to take advantage from all the metals that are inside of this electronic thing. So some of them, we have air pollution, water, and take a lot of, put your attention here, because from these 7 areas, I want that you choose for tomorrow, and we will create the activity, right, for our speaking call. So we have, again, air pollution, water quality, food safety, loss of biodiversity, climate change, access to minerals, and new developments. These strategies and the way that they suggest to create some some way to interpretation all these topics, and they start to talk about this in jail, and they start to put a lot of efforts and a lot of investments to analyze all the consequences in some remote countries and with some specific issues. This is the case of Puerto Rico. They start to analyze how the consequences of the wars, of the different worldwide wars are affecting this island, right? Or how affected. But they start to analyze, like, from a scientists, from a scientific forums. And all the results, they take it and they put it in an inform for presented to US government by that time, trying to make that they change their international position, because all they want to show them that all the bad stuff and all the consequences that they can get in this kind of nations starts in US, and how these results of this study that takes now 11 years will be the base for understand how the future will be, and how all the things that is happening now will affect like our third or fourth generations that are coming. The result of all these studies that I'm telling you, especially in Puerto Rico, on the study that they do, is how all these chemical products continue in the environment even when you destroy them, right? When you put fire into a plastic, like in our physical world, in our material world, we create like an illusion that didn't exist anymore. But basically, they are in other stage, right? Now it's in the air, and they start to analyze it. And even when you want to be so technical, you will always need supports of other areas, okay? So here is some of the key questions that they suggest and that I want that we analyze, of course. So the first thing is the level of government appropriate to solve the problem. When I am talking about water contamination, the first thing that I need to analyze is who can solve it, who has the power to solve it, and what's that? Perfect. Who can solve it, and how is the way that I need to put all the information to them for solve the problem, right? But how I explained it before, how we are interrelated, is really hard, because the river crossed the country, right? It's just an example. In my case, we are talking about the huge river, like we can talk that they cross some 15 regions. So I don't care if the problem starts in the north. Maybe the huge part or the horrible part of these consequences will finish in the south, right? And I need to, so here start the problems, right? With the first question. If I am telling, here, I will take the example in Bolivia. Results that we are having an emission problem in La Paz, right? But all these issues are going to all the air in all our mountains. And this is the cause that we are having more water in the river, and we start to create a chaos in basically all the country. We never connected. We never analyze which factories are producing more than the others. We just saw the consequence. And the one that got the worst part, okay, what is the solution? Not that. The solution is try to get votes for save lives, so for save some material stuff. That is one part. Then we have the branch of government to establish law. Who will create the law for solve these kind of troubles? Hay un tema en mi país que se implementó hace muchos años, que son los controles de material particulado en las ciudades más importantes de Colombia. Si a mí me preguntaban hace 10 años, yo no sabía qué era eso. Era como, ¿sí? La manera más fácil de decirlo es todas las porquerías que emitimos se condensan en unos cositas súper microscópicas que se llama material particulado. Y esto afecta nuestro organismo en un tiempo muy difícil de analizar y estudiar, porque resulta que las consecuencias son súper a largo plazo. Son como, en 40 años yo puedo corroborar si por todas esas emisiones que entraron a mi organismo fue que se desarrolló el cáncer. Pero siempre hay una razón mayor. Siempre es, le dio cáncer porque fumaba, o tiene problemas digestivos, es que comía muchísima chatarra. Comenzaron a hacer unos estudios, especialmente en Australia y Nueva Zelanda, donde comenzaron a demostrar que la gran mayoría del cáncer que viene, de la gran mayoría de los problemas que están presentando consecuencias en los adultos mayores, es por este material particulado. ¿Y cómo yo soluciono el tema del material particulado, que sería el ejemplo que les estoy dando? No necesito emisiones de autos, no necesito producción en fábricas. O sea, básicamente me toca acabar con la sociedad como la conocemos, ¿sí? Necesito reducir esa producción al mínimo y eso no va a ser así, nunca. Entonces, que se siga asociando, sí existe el problema, sabemos las causas, sabemos las consecuencias, pero no tenemos las herramientas necesarias para solucionarlo, right? So, this is just a way of see and oversee all these situations that we can get around us. Other thing that is really important is the access to data and all the confidentiality that we get. But this is so powerful. We talk about this in the private law sessions, and it's the trade secrets. If I am the owner of a really huge pharmaceutical factory in Colombia, by the trade secrets, I can submit and I can create like a wall between all the information that needs the government to approve some bill or whatever, taking into account that all these kind of products is a mix of chemicals and belongs to the trade secrets, right? So even the government didn't get all the structure for makes that they speak about all the content of the product that they get, because from the part of the huge companies, they are getting the best lawyers of the countries of the world for make that this continue being confidential, right? They make some agreements, of course, and they create some projects to help people. Like if they approve this pharmaceutical stuff, I will to donate some billion of pills to the government to attend some parts of the country that they didn't get these pills, for example. And they start to make like economical negotiations, playing with this data, with these confidential issues. Other thing that is so important here is the preemption. Esto es un derecho preferente de compra. Es un tema muy, muy importante cuando nosotros hacemos negociaciones con empresas que tienen economía mixta. Y aquí me toca hablar en español porque necesito ir más lento con mis niñas que no han pasado por una facultad de Derecho. Y básicamente cuando nosotros trabajamos en el área del derecho administrativo, nosotros tenemos que gestionar el billete que tiene el gobierno, ¿verdad? Y como nosotros tenemos que gestionar ese billete, tenemos que encontrar la manera más efectiva de gastarlo, ¿sí? Es como cuando nos dan plata y necesitamos comprar ropa, zapatos, toca mirar cómo se administra, a ver si toca comprar ropa y zapatos y no comemos en restaurante, comemos en restaurante y lo otro. Lo mismo pasa en los estados, ¿verdad? Cuando nosotros vemos este término súper importante y que está relacionado con el derecho del medio ambiente, es cómo el gobierno, desde sus entidades de economía mixta, no puede tomar decisiones, puesto que la imparcialidad no existe, ¿sí? Porque si yo como gobierno estoy vendiendo y estoy negociando el oro, Yo no puedo tomar decisiones porque voy en contra de mis propios intereses. ¿Sí me entienden? Y ese es otro problema súper grande. ¿Sí? Cuando yo hablo de este derecho preferente de compra, de venta, es que el gobierno siempre se va a poner en un estado o en una situación en el que por estudios de factibilidad, como lo único que nos pasa por la cabeza es billete, me va a resultar a mí más barato traer en cualquier escenario que lo quieran ver. Voy a ponerlo en el sector hospitalario, que ahorita con todo el COVID este tema está de moda. Resulta que a mí me sale mucho más barato exportar desde la India 500 toneladas de balas de oxígeno que crearlas, porque evidentemente no tengo cómo crearlas, ¿sí? Porque nuestra industria no está tan desarrollada. ¿Y cuáles son las consecuencias medioambientales de estos derechos preferentes de compra? Que resulta que toda la emisión que me está haciendo ese viaje desde la India nos está afectando a todos, así el negocio se esté haciendo entre India y Colombia, ¿verdad? Entre alguna parte, yo qué sé, de Rusia y Colombia, entre alguna parte de Nueva Zelanda y Colombia. ¿Mm? Pero estamos todos interconectados y las negociaciones a nivel mundial son millones todos los días. Y todos estamos haciendo lo mismo. Pero el problema es cuando viene por parte del gobierno, en especial con temas de minería. ¿Sí? Este término está muy relacionado con el tema de la compra de materia prima y de la venta, de la importación, de la exportación de materia prima y de la extracción. Como para, por ejemplo, comprar, no sé, a ver, un ejemplo fácil. Para poder sacar algún tipo de metal, a veces necesitamos utilizar otros metales que no produce nuestro país, ¿verdad? Y necesitamos importarlos. Entonces, ese derecho preferente de compra me va a facilitar ese proceso, esa negociación, y como gobierno voy a tener otras garantías que como entidad privada no voy a tener, ¿verdad? Pero es el mismo gobierno el que está regulando esa entrada de mercancías al país y es el mismo gobierno el que va a juzgar en caso de que haya algún error en el proceso de la licitación. Entonces no hay garantías, ¿verdad? No hay tribunales, cosas que pasan en nuestros países latinoamericanos, pero en Europa no, ¿sí? Y así existiera en nuestro país, yo les doy un ejemplo, así existiera una entidad encargada de regularlo, etcétera, es por poder político que se ingresan a esos puestos. Entonces, es un dicho de abuelita, pero uno nunca le va a pegar a la mano que le está dando de comer, ¿sí? Y no va a funcionar nunca, ¿verdad? Other thing that is so important here is the administrative discretion, right? And how they manage all the information that they are getting. Here in Latin America, we know that some products that comes from US or from Europe, they are having a lot of pesticides in food. We know that they are transgenic because we saw the orange so perfect and it's so known. Like in our mental conscious, we got it. And it's like, oh yes, this is so bad for health. But in the way that they are trying to conserve these international relationships, they cannot be completely transparent with the information that they are giving to the public. You know what I mean? So we didn't get any kind of guarantees here. When we want to talk about the consequences and risks about everything, we need to create like the state of art and analyze it. I know a couple of lawyers that are working on this, and the trouble with these aspects and that is like when you are asking for international help, you get some amount of money for develop some project. And when you finish the project, you are done. So you can create a really good idea. You can do all the development, you can all the research, and you can analyze all the risks and all the standards for apply these projects. But then in 6 months, all the financial issues is over and you are done with the project. So we cannot continue doing it because we didn't get money. And how they are not paying, the lawyers don't want to continue working because the people didn't work for free, even when the interest is huge because it's for all of us. We are inside of the system, even when we want to go out or even when we are trying to think different. Tell me which one of all of you will work for free for a community? Not so easy, because you are getting the same responsibility as if they are paying you, but they are not paying you. And you have the same effort, or maybe you didn't sleep. So this is like, we have other huge issues that is from the evidence that we need to present. When you are against of all these huge factories and all these huge businesses, you are against something that is called dynamic burden of proof. Dynamic burden of proof. Lo estudiamos todo el tiempo en nuestra carrera. La carga dinámica de la prueba. Y ahí me voy con mis niñas otra vez. Gali, ¿qué es eso? La carga dinámica de la prueba es algo que ustedes van a ver en derecho probatorio y en derecho procesal. Y básicamente se refiere a que en un juicio de cualquier área del derecho, la persona que se encuentre con la mayor capacidad o facilidad de acceder a una prueba se encuentra en su obligación procesal de tomarla y de presentarla en el proceso. ¿Sí? A ver, el ejemplo más claro en estos casos son todos estos temas de negligencia médica. Si yo estoy embarazada y voy a tener mi bebé y resulta que el médico se equivocó con el tema del corte y resultó cortándole X cosa al niño, y yo tengo el niño súper lastimado, sangrando, lo que sea, ¿a quién le queda más fácil determinar el error médico? ¿A mí, que puedo decir, señor juez, la que le cortaron un dedo? ¿O a un médico o a un grupo de médicos que va a estudiar y va a analizar cómo fue el tema del corte y el ángulo, y porque tal vez no fue un error, sino que fue un tema biológico y todo esto? ¿A quién le queda más fácil entregarle al juez algo súper verídico al respecto? Al médico o al grupo de médicos, porque ellos científicamente le van a explicar al juez o al ente administrativo cuál fue el fallo, cuál fue el error. Cuando lleguemos a esos casos de negligencia médica, que los vamos a ver los pros y contras de esa situación. Pero esa es la mejor manera en la que yo puedo explicar la carga dinámica de la prueba, ¿sí? Esto creo que no lo habíamos visto, así que igual yo toda esta presentación se la voy a mandar. Perdonarán por allá que escribí issues mal. Pero bueno, todo este tema de la evidencia, en estos casos de derecho del medio ambiente, son supremamente complejos, porque cuando un gran sector industrial quiere probarle al gobierno que sus productos no son tan letales o no están afectando tanto el medio ambiente como ellos alegan, van a traerse a los mejores científicos de carácter internacional. ¿Mm? Y contra eso tiene que competir un Estado o un gobierno débil que no tiene cómo probarlo. ¿Sí? So the industry wants that the government proves all the damages and all the wearing and all the danger that can belongs to a product or to a service or to industry, right? And all this scientific analysis, all the fight with lawyers and all the best law firms that can represent one of these huge companies, of course that the private sector can afford it. But we can see in my country some cases when we get like the best buffets in all the country, working hundreds and a lot of people working in the process to defend this huge company, and we have a couple that are representing the interest of the nation, right? The lawyer and his assistant or her assistant, depending of the case. So it's so easy to lose one of these cases because the government didn't put, and it's impossible that they spend a lot of hundreds and dollars and or maybe $1 million to analyze how these damages affect the health of the kids, of all the animals or all the wildlife. It's really hard, right? They didn't get the legal expertise of the defenders. Maybe just someone that happens too much in criminal law in Colombia. The proceeding maybe makes or maybe wants that all the prosecutors get like specialized in the area that they are, but you can find in some sexual harassment, you can find some prosecutor that is specialized in economy. Why? Because they didn't get a job. So that happens here a lot of. Here is the thing that I was telling you, like hundreds and hundreds and millions of dollars spending in some. I guess that the best example that we can get it can be all the technologies or all the pharmaceutical, right? Because when we're talking of this huge industry, when they want to produce one pill, I will give you an example, the post-day pill, they produce first worldwide, they produce a huge standard of consumption. They always, right? Always, because they create all the map to make that this works. So imagine that before that, in all the research, if we are going back in all this research issue, they analyze how maybe this can affect all the body or all the system of a woman. And they spend hundreds and millions of dollars in all the research with the security that by the end of this analysis, they can get all that money back in all the exporting and importing in basically all the commercial matter in this topic. But they are having all this as an invest. So if they spend this million of dollars to creating the pill for, I don't know, for the cancer, but results that all the damages that are created in the human body are worse, and when government want to go against that, it's not equality. Because before that, they do a huge study, and it's no way that I can like go against that just with the consequence when they have been studied that for 10 and 15 years. And every time they will start to get some professional that we say that is correct, the way that they are doing it on all the consequences, maybe it's interrelated with other diagnostic that we cannot explain and understand because we are lawyers, right? We are not experts on these matters. Perfect. Whew. So we have the preponderance of the evidence, that is a proof system that in my country exists before. Now we didn't get it. And this is important to understand when we are talking about trials, when we can get a jury. In Colombia, the jury didn't exist anymore unless you are talking about commercial issues and some business administration, but also with some external consulting, you can get some jury. But by the judicial issues, just when you are talking about the Supreme Court of Justice, you can get some people that are taking decision like in group. That depends of the matter, it can be 3 or it can be 7. But this is important because in some countries, when we're talking about the beginnings of the history of all the probatory stuff, we will get contact with this. Entonces, esto es básicamente derecho probatorio, bases. Hay muchas teorías de bases de la prueba, de carga de la prueba, de la manera en la que se pueden tomar decisiones en cualquier procedimiento. Pero en este, que es el más importante, hablamos de la preponderancia, ¿sí? Y básicamente ese jurado, ese grupo de personas, los conciliadores, los mediadores, los jueces de paz, etcétera, tienen que estar convencidos en pruebas o en indicios que hay una probabilidad superior a ese 50% que el acusado haya causado el daño que se está alegando en la demanda, ¿verdad? Que eso se utiliza mucho en las películas de Hollywood cuando dicen, oh, sí, asesinó a Pepito, y entonces todos ellos entran a esa sala de deliberación y cada uno desde un punto de vista, desde su conocimiento técnico, desde su instinto, deciden si el tipo era culpable o no, ¿verdad? Es como que hayan pruebas y también un poquito de indicios y, uy, si creemos ese 52% ya es inocente, ¿sí? Y esto lo conocemos como preponderance of the evidence, right? That means that the jury will need to be convinced based on all the evidence that there is a greater than 50% chance that defendant caused the harm that we are trying to get in the lawsuit. And one of the final thing that one of the final thing is the national sovereignty that we were talking before, where how we can control all the issues with metals and industrial standards like around the world, and how in Asia they are producing all the electronics, but also they are trying to create a new energy from them, and how they are trying to kind of recycling from all the world, but also that is like the green part of the issue, but the other part is like in some parts of the ocean we can get an island for trash, right? Here we talk about other topic that is so related with environmental stuff that, as I told you, we can find hundreds and hundreds. But this one is where we can analyze how the soil is so contaminated. And they were talking about how all these like radioactive materials be present in our life in one size, or in one we can talk about like they can be present in our bodies and in our lives, but it's a really slight balance that you can get out of control so easily. When they are talking about cesium, cobalt, and all this radiation, the effects or all the consequences that you can get from your mental development and for basically your body can be huge, right? And all this anatomic energy that we saw in movies of US, they are real, and they are having like a lot of studies to create a clean energy, but also they are analyzing as a sustain of these new energies, of these new waste. They are analyzing all the bad consequences of the past. And in some of the studies of this university, they were analyzing that some scientific group, they start to take like in count how you can get troubles like transgenerational by the milk, and they start to collect milk around the world, in Asia, Russia, Germany, in Argentina, in Africa, and they start to analyze, like scientific analyze, how they can start to get some of these elements in the milk. So if you can find it in the milk, of course that is in the water, in the rivers, in the mountains, it's now inside of us. And we always listen about the mercury in the tuna, because this is one of the most common fishes in the diet of US and in some of our countries. But we never listen about the contamination of other wildlife, because do one of these studies is so expensive. And they analyze also the bones of some of homeless people around the world. And they start to take some of these little pieces to analyze it, some with people from US and from people from Argentina and from Africa and from Asia and New Zealand. And they start to see that some atomic problem or issue that starts in US get consequences 40 years, 15 years, 60 years later in the bones of people that at the same time born in the other part of the world. And they start to understand how we are really interconnected, interrelated, and how we need to change the way that we are living now, following all this crisis. And also, we have the false sense of security that we are getting, that when our country takes an agreement or belongs to agreement or to an international treaty that protects to environment, we are safe. We didn't have no problems. We can solve it. But we always forget all the private interests and all the policy and how this influences in all the decisions that they are taking. Because of course that we are not taking these kind of decisions. We are just following and believing that just because Brazil is on this treaty, we will get the oxygen that all the world needs from the couple next of centuries. But maybe that never happens because the government in Brazil thinks quite different than all the world. That is the reason that the UE are investing a lot of money in projects with indigenous communities in Brazil. They're investing so much money because they know that they are the guardians of nature right now. So for the people that didn't start with us, we get here some like list of problems or troubles that we are getting. So my idea for tomorrow is that you choose one. I don't want that to create an article so scientific, no. I just want your opinion about like the general stuff that I give you today, how you can maybe give your interpretation, and how will be the best way that you as a lawyer can analyze some law, rule, statement, federal decision, court decision, whatever that order, whatever that you want to take, or policy, and connect it with which topic that results relevance for you and that results really interesting, right? Can be water quality, food safety, biodiversity, if you care. But I want that you create one page. If you want to put it with all these technical, it's on you. I don't care. I just want to see you opinion, and I want to read you. So my idea is that we will discuss it in our speaking call, but then I want like all the texts because that will be like there. Maybe for created. Voy a quitar la pantalla compartida. ¿Es claro la actividad para mañana? ¿Quieren que la repita en español? ¿Se quedaron dormidos? ¿Se aburrieron? María, Gabriela y Daisy. Entonces, la idea es con una de estos temas que tenemos, que son solamente unos ejemplos, si quieren, si alguien resulta que tiene, no sé, una idea como la del material particulado o el fracking, si quieren y creen encontrar algo que les llame más la atención, lo pueden hacer, pero mi idea es que para mañana esté como estructurado en sus cabezas un tema del que quieran discutir, desde el que vean un problema, no desde el lado un poco más político, sino desde el lado de interpretación. Si quieren tomar un artículo de algún tratado internacional, de alguna ley, de alguna ordenanza, de algún acuerdo, de alguna decisión, solamente tomar el artículo. Por ejemplo, el derecho a la vida de la Convención Americana, ¿sí? Y cómo alguna decisión del Estado lo afecta. O sea, este tema de interrelacionar premisa mayor, premisa menor y conclusión, pero todo en el marco de uno de estos escenarios que les planteo, que puede ser cambio climático, seguridad alimentaria, contaminación, o lo que ustedes prefieran. Y eso para el speaking call. Y para el fin de semana, para sacar notas, porque ya entramos a nuestra nos quedan 3 semanas de clase y terminamos, para poder tener algún tipo de nota a la cual agarrarme, les propongo entonces el escrito de una página que me lo pueden enviar hasta el domingo a medianoche, pero donde estén desarrollando la idea que vamos a comentar mañana en el speaking call. Ahora, si les resulta más fácil desarrollar el escrito y con eso sustentarlo, depende de ustedes. Si lo quieren hacer desde un punto de vista científico, con citas, como ustedes prefieran, me da igual. O sea, eso no va a cambiar la nota. Lo que quiero es ver su opinión. Ahora, no es que me van a coger 2 párrafos. Ah, sí, la ley dice esto y otra ordenanza dice esto y mi opinión es esta. Está mal. No. Sí lo pueden resumir como el artículo 1 de tal y en concordancia con esta decisión que tomó mi alcaldía y mi opinión es esta. Punto. Pero desde un lado de interpretación, o sea, cómo se debería aplicar la ley, ¿sí? Y eso sería una página. Si no, no hay más reglas. Una página, si lo quieren hacer en Arial 14, en Arial 12, en lo que ustedes prefieran, pero donde yo pueda ver realmente el punto de vista de ustedes. Entonces, ¿está clara la actividad? ¿Dudas? ¿Inquietudes? ¿Sí? Crisia, Daisy, ¿ninguna duda?
Todo
¿Todo
bien,
claro?
gracias, sí.
Súper, perfecto. Bueno, entonces así terminaríamos este temita.
Vale, una pregunta. Es sobre los temas que mencionaste,
Dime.
¿verdad? O sea,
Sí,
¿me
pero
repites?
capaz que no sé, a ti te gusta. Sí, 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 o sea, eh, todo lo que quieras puedes meter ahí, desde la creación de aerosoles hasta la vaca que caga aquí en el barrio al lado, es lo mismo. O sea, todo sí o sí está interrelacionado. Así que al colocar yo ese tan general, te estoy abriendo la puerta que de pronto tienes un tema que te guste mucho y que has venido trabajando y lo puedes involucrar ahí, ¿verdad? El tema, por ejemplo, de la pesca, es que por el lado, como les comentaba al principio de la clase, por el lado al que ustedes miren van a encontrar un tema y una problemática. Siento que el clic del asunto va a haber encontrar el ámbito internacional y el ámbito regional que lo protege y cómo se van a ir en contra de eso o cómo van a demostrar que no se está interpretando de la manera correcta o que se está interpretando de la manera correcta, pero en algunos casos, ¿sí? Como, como les decía, este sector farmacéutico, el sector automotriz. Por ejemplo, les voy a hacer un ejemplo muy rápido, así estamos todos en la misma. Resulta que Colombia firmó un acuerdo para emitir las emisiones de carbono, ¿verdad? El Ministerio de Agricultura decidió que se le iban a otorgar como unas ayudas a los campesinos y entre estos iba a ser como la materialización de algunos terrenos para convertirlo en sectores productivos, ¿sí? Pero resulta que dentro de esa ley se encontró, al colocar como en la producción agropecuaria, muchos de estos granjeros decidieron volverlo livestock, decidieron trabajar con ganadería, ¿verdad? Entonces, un problema de interpretación sería la resolución 320 del Ministerio de Agricultura en Colombia se encuentra realmente en concordancia con los estándares internacionales de las emisiones de carbono en el año 2020. ¿Ya? No estoy pidiendo que lo resuelvan, estoy pidiendo que creen el problema de interpretación. ¿Sí me entienden? Que analicen cómo van a chocar la premisa mayor con la premisa menor y cuál es la conclusión. ¿Sí? Se puede concluir con fundamento en el estudio. Ahora, si quieren echarle una googleada. En el estudio realizado por la Universidad de los Andes, se puede concluir que el científico Pepito Pérez analizó que en Colombia en el año 2021 estuvimos 13 grados encima de la producción de CO2 que debíamos emitir para ese año. ¿Sí vieron cómo se demuestra la interpretación? Otro ejemplo. porque puede ser un poquito complejo. La cuestión, claro, podemos ver este problema desde muchos puntos de vista. Desde Greenpeace, en que vamos todas a marchar para el cambio climático, o desde, bueno, chicas, cuando lleguen a la presidencia, por favor, cambian todo el sistema, gracias, muy linda la clase de hoy, va. Pero donde lo podemos abordar desde este momento, que igual sigue siendo un abordaje irresponsable, es desde el lado de la academia. ¿Y cómo se llegan a esas investigaciones fuertes? Por medio de las preguntas, ¿verdad? Otro ejemplo, el del material particulado que les comentaba. Colombia, otra vez, bueno, no, vámonos con otro. Bolivia. Bolivia no tiene mar. Entonces, los canales de importación y exportación tienen que hacerse por vía terrestre o por vía aérea. Las consecuencias de hacerlo por vía aérea son unas emisiones tremendas. Entonces, el problema sería, claro, acuérdense que en estos problemas lo más importante es delimitarlo lo más que se pueda. Entonces, ¿cuáles son las consecuencias de las emisiones de carbono derivadas del transporte aéreo en Bolivia? ¿Sí? ¿Y qué nos dice algún tratado internacional? Resulta que toda la producción de materia prima, etcétera, que se está realizando en otro país nos está afectando y tenemos esto como consecuencia. ¿Sí? No como consecuencia de que nosotros seamos los productores de la contaminación, pero sí como consecuencia de que o no tenemos los diseños, no tenemos los canales de suministro para nuestro país, o que nunca nos hemos enfocado en producir. Si se quiere meter con el tema de la gasolina, eso está retratado en todo el mundo, con el tema de la importación y exportación de materias primas y los tratados de libre comercio, con extracción. Entonces esa es la idea para mañana. ¿Está clariño? Súper. Y entonces el domingo en la noche espero los escritos. ¿Listo? Igual mañana solucionamos preguntas, dudas, de pronto tienen un borrador y lo vamos puliendo. Así terminaríamos la clase de hoy, eso es todo, nos demoramos 10 minutos más. Sorry. Les voy a publicar la encuesta. Y también antes de que se vayan, como ya saben, tuve problemas, les presento excusas porque nunca pasa, pero no pude modificar la reunión y no pude modificar los horarios y bueno, definitivamente me tocó entrar. Entonces, tenemos una speaking call pendiente, que es el tema de la deforestación en Brasil, ese artículo que les había enviado de Greenpeace. Entonces les quiero proponer 2 días y vemos si o lo dividimos o todos nos vamos con un día y todos nos vamos para el otro. Les puedo proponer que hagamos en los mismos horarios el día sábado, desde más o menos las 6 de la tarde Bolivia hasta las 9, el día sábado 6 de marzo o el día lunes 8 de marzo. Igual sí o sí nos toca invadir un horario que no tengamos. Así que les pido el favor, voten ahora. ¿Qué día les quedaría mejor? O si de pronto nos dividimos y me dicen, bueno, hacemos el sábado unas y el lunes otras porque trabajo, porque me veo con mi novio, lo que sea. Entonces las escucho.
Gali, en mi caso,
Dime.
viera que yo tengo clases de 8 de la mañana a 5 de la tarde, hora de Costa Rica. Entonces, si es después
Okay.
de esa hora, yo el sábado podría, siempre y cuando sea después de esa hora, que creo que vamos a ver, me pierdo, hora Bolivia. Vamos a ver.
Sí. Bueno, algunos casos específicos, no se preocupen, que la recuperamos dentro de las speaking call. De pronto, alguien que no pueda, que de verdad tenga una cita médica o tenga que ver con el novio, o la novia, lo cual tiene que ser muy válido también. Bueno, lo hacemos en una speaking call de los otros días, la alargamos un poquito. Pero lo que quiero saber es generalmente qué les quedaría
Podría
mejor, tirarse un sábado en la noche.
pero en mi caso sería a las 7 horas de Bolivia, ya sería porque mis clases terminan a las 5. Entonces, si fuera sábado, yo podría partir de esa hora. Y si no, lunes a la misma hora de las clases. Eso en mi caso particular.
Yo podría el
¿Y los
lunes.
demás?
El lunes puedo sacar tiempo desde súper temprano, entonces, si usted me dice, Gali, después del almuerzo, y estoy después del almuerzo. Entonces no hay ningún problema, porque el sábado y el domingo sí se me imposibilita tener internet. Entonces, para que todos sigamos organizados, el lunes.
Sí, a mí
Lunes.
igual me parece mejor el
Creo que en
lunes.
general es
Sí, yo
preferible que
también
sea
estaría
lunes.
mejor para el lunes.
Son los mejores. Listo. Entonces voy a organizar los horarios y lo hacemos el lunes. Y quien tenga alguna situación, no importa, la hacemos en otro día de speaking call, la hacemos más larga y ya, y nos adelantamos con eso. Entonces voy a confirmarlo con mi supervisora para que me habiliten la plataforma ese lunes. Y si sí me la habilitan, igual yo les confirmo. Les
Vale.
confirmo el sábado o apenas ella me conteste. Y si no me lo habilitan, les aviso para ver cuándo más lo hacemos. ¿Listo?
No pasa nada, Gali,
Muchísimas
perfecto.
gracias por su tiempo. Muchísimas gracias por su tiempo y entonces nos vemos mañana.
Hasta mañana,
Gracias,
bye.
Lili.
Adiós, gracias.
Hasta luego.
Que estén bien,
Gracias.
chao, chao. Adiós.